One of the things that I told myself constantly, which didn't work, by the way, it was a story against me, was I'm too young, there are people listening to me. Why would they listen to me, right? So it's like, it's a stupid question, therefore it elicits a stupid answer. Because if I ask myself stupid questions, then I get stupid answers from myself. Usually this like internal dialogue that's taking place, we gotta control the dialogue there. And so the questions we ask ourselves determines how we think, right? Tylet, welcome home. Welcome to my home, man. Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah. So today we're sitting with Paul. Paul's been in the financial services space for 20 years. Accomplished a lot in that time. And today we're going to dive into how you've been able to grow, not only in your personal, life and personal sales and your personal business, but just the whole journey and the entire experience that you've had and what it's been like actually going through it. Because a lot of people, they see, I'm looking at right in front of me, walls full of awards, right? And it's so easy for new people, I think, to look up the mountain and say, hey, I'm getting into business, I'm starting entrepreneurship, maybe I'm brand new into sales, and I see these people that are doing so well, but they're so far away, I don't know if I can get there. But like your story is an example of how when you stick to the same thing, you do it for a while and you do the right things, you've been able to get to the point where you have a room full of awards. But it wasn't always like that.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So, at the beginning, and I guess for you to introduce yourself to everybody, like, what, I guess, that was my introduction, but what would be your own introduction for everybody just to kind of give a summary of where you're at with everything?
There's one thing that comes to mind when you're saying that. There's one thing that I've learned early on. It's called the depth perception. And a lot of times we think we're so much farther than we actually are when we're a lot closer than we think. That's why most people quit 3 feet from gold, like Think and Grow Rich talks about, right? So I think having that perspective that and just looking at certain things where, man, I'm closer than I think. And so there's always this, and I'll talk about, kind of the journey, but there was always this, like sometimes you're one call away from, just this, sometimes we're one recruit away or one call away or one action away from just this. There's a part of, Ed Milet is one of the guys that I worked with and is one of my mentors in business, but he talks about the power of one more. And that's kind of what the gist of it is, and whether it's a workout or whatever the last call you do, sometimes the blessing is in that last call. It's when you don't feel like doing it and then you do 3 more, 5 more, all the blessing. The first 50 calls were, there was nothing, and then the last 3 was all the blessings. But we stop some way because, we're emotionally clouded. We think we're so far. And anyway, and most people do this on a daily basis, but you compound it the other way around where it's just one more thing I'm doing, right? So it's the perception again that I'm a lot farther when I'm actually a lot closer. And I can deal with that every day. And so, but a lot of this, I think it's been 20 years. It feels like, it doesn't feel that long. It's felt like it just passed by real quick. Just because I had kids and business and marriage all at the same time, like all in the same year practically. You're like in a period of 14 months, a new business, kids, and marriage all practically in 14-month period. And so it was pretty quick. And I call it the 3 good pressures of life. So sometimes we got bad pressures like debt, right? Where it can clutter our mind. You get stiff necks, right? You can't sleep at night, all these other things that debt brings. And there's a lot of other bad pressures, right? But I think that's the good pressures of life. And I think if we can hone in on that, I think there's, and these are just things I've learned over the years. There's stress, and then there's euro stress, which is euphoric stress. So I think like public speaking, most people confuse it as stress when it's euphoric stress, right? But that's why they fear it so much, because they're associating it with the stress they go through with other stuff in life, and then they confuse it with the same thing. But it's euphoric stress. It's actually good for you. Keeps you alive, right? Keeps your spirit alive. The other one kills your spirit, right? Like debt kills someone's spirit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I grew up, I came to this country, believe it or not, when I was 14 and a half. grew up with my mom, and my mom and dad were separated in the early 90s, so that my mom and dad were separated already at that time. And we got here and just kind of started from scratch. So we came. My dad's Irish, my mom's Filipino, but right after the Vietnam War, my dad decided to move to the Philippines. He didn't want to live here just because of all the commotions that was going on, and he saw signs of baby killer and all the stuff that was going on in the Vietnam War, and just kind of left that. It was one of the countries he visited during war, and he said, I like that place, and let me just move there and experiment. And he knew nobody there, and maybe that's where I get my adventure side of things. But he moved there and met my mom 5 years later, and basically fast forward, we moved here in 1997, starts from scratch. My mom had some money saved, a decent amount. Well, not decent, like 30 grand, and so within 6 months that was gone. There's four of us, four kids, so even though we had help with like the places we lived in, the homes we lived in, we shared, like at one point we had 5 people renting from the same place, where we had our cousin rent and a coworker rent and all sorts of stuff just to kind of pay the rent. And that was in Walnut, California, is where it all started. And just, I think I saw what I didn't want, and that was like kind of the driving force towards the whole journey here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I was I was in high school when I left the Philippines. I came here. I went to high school again. So I was in high school for like 6 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Because people graduate there like 15 or so.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. If we take a step back to what you said a second ago, I mean, before the 3 pressures of life, you mentioned doing one more, right?
Yeah.
And being consistent with that. And, if you do it every single day, you make one extra call, you do one extra outreach, you do one extra something, you study for one extra hour, whatever it is, over 30 days, it's one extra for 30 days, which is 30. And then 30 is 365 days in a year, and you do 365 days in a year. All that stuff adds up over time. Yeah. Why do you think people don't do one extra or even hit the mark that they most times set out to?
Yeah, I think that maybe the future is not bright, or there's no compelling future. So if the future is not compelling, or I don't think I'm getting closer to it, or what so I think if there's two hand in hand. So one of the things that I literally, and I just learned this from just being around the right people early on in my early 20s, is affirmations. We were doing affirmations as a team. So we would get in the office, our schedule, we would get in at 8 to 8:30, we would practice, drill, rehearse on language and scripts and, posture, everything, right? And then we would jump into our affirmations, and then we start dialing, smiling and dialing. At 9. So 9 to 11 was our green time. So from 9 to 11, we're on the phones, and there's this collaborative energy that's taking place. But during that affirmation, we're also reading our business plan. So we're constantly, right? It's going through our tongue, and we're imagining it, right? It's not. And I think it's a practice that we did not only as a family. We did that for our family, but with the team, with the office. This was something we did, as a ritual. And right now with Zoom and all that obviously just people have to do the similar thing. You got to almost put a binoculars on and kind of look out into your future, and then bring it closer. And then the more you bring it closer, where you can feel it, touch it, smell it, and whatever that is. If it's, so whatever that is for you, whether it's some people, it's the car thing, or the house, or a family one day, or a big team, or big company, right? Or speaking on stage in front of 10,000 people. What's that feel like, smell like, touch? What's the aroma? How do you feel when you get up there? And so I think the more you get yourself there prior to getting there, and all you're doing now is you're walking into your vision versus kind of being scared about it. You're walking into it. You know what I mean? So this is my vision. I'm bringing it closer. I'm going to walk into it, and then every action in mind is with that vision in mind. So the way I'm talking, the way I'm communicating with someone is with that vision in mind. So now I'm drawing you to my vision. So now I start to attract people to my vision, and that's the whole magic of, that's what visionaries do. If you look at MLK and what he's done in, the 70s, he casted a vision on what he's done, and then it was a movement, right? And this is before social media. Imagine if social media was around back then.
Yeah.
He'd be the most viral guy on the planet.
Yeah. So do you think that most people who maybe get started inside of sales, business, entrepreneurship, they don't have a vision, or they're not practicing their vision consistently, or like, what do you think that disconnect is? Because, I mean, that's something that I think most people, like, right, like the Bible says, where there is no vision, the people will perish.
Yep.
So like, do people not think far enough out into the future, or is it just something that they're not, maybe they're so caught up on now, or like, what do you think
Right.
that is?
It's exactly that. It's people are caught up, whether it's bills, kids, mortgage, traffic, people around them, right? I think people are just caught up. I think I'm getting goosebumps as I'm sharing this with you, but I think people just need to schedule time to think. I mean, most people schedule everything, right? They schedule their gym, their this, their that. How about time to think? We're just nothingness, and it's just you with you, right? And so, sometimes it's scary for people to just be with themselves. I enjoy it. I like the sauna. I like to do it in the heat, or just plain nothing but my thoughts. But I think people need to just take time to do it. There's most people don't know what they want. I think that's if you ask, Harvard did a study on it. I know Alex Hermosi even talks about it. Most people have no clue what they want. You know what I mean? So if you ask them what exactly do you want, and they just go more money or more of this or this or that, it's not. I don't know. It's not real yet, right? It's not real to them. It's just something they're throwing out to impress people. But I think it needs to be emotionalized where it's real. I can feel it. It needs to move you. If it doesn't move you, it's not what you want.
Yeah, I read a book called Psycho-Cybernetics a couple years ago.
Yeah,
I've read it a couple times.
Yeah.
It says our minds are goal-seeking mechanisms. So if we put a target in front of us, we'll find a way to get there. And the best example that I can think of is like a new salesperson who tells himself that they're going to be great at what they're doing.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I'm going to make an extra call. They'll have a good attitude about it, or they'll be positive about what they're doing. And hey, that person said no, but I got a whole list of these people that I'm going to reach out to. It's okay. Like, it's no big deal. I'm going to go to the next person. And then there's a person that tells themselves they're like we said, right? There's one person with the vision. There's one person without it. That other person is sitting there saying, oh, like, I'm no good at this. Nobody wants to buy, right? And so you're proving your own thoughts to yourself while you're going through the process of whatever you're doing. And that could be sales, business, with your family, like looking for the good in things and all that stuff. But I love it. So so you go to high school for 6 years, and then you're in the US.
Yeah, I was always looking for ways to kind of make additional income just because there wasn't enough of it. My mom, I think she was making maybe $30,000, and that's probably exaggeration, a year, right? To feed 4 kids. So obviously that wasn't enough. So I was just always looking at random things. I was selling cable on the side. This is all during high school. I was flipping cars. Would buy a bunch of Ford Focus, Hyundais, or all these like cars I could buy for. So basically, it would be $1,000. I'd negotiate it down to. The money isn't a negotiation; it's how you buy. It's not so much how you sell it. So at least for the car business, from my frame of reference, I don't have much car business experience. It's just that little. But that made me like an extra $2,000 a month.
Yeah,
it wasn't bad. That's a big deal when your mom makes 30 a year.
Right.
That's 24 grand I was bringing in, and that was just a little thing. And I had a little side gig cable thing, and where I was selling. That wasn't much money. But that was it, and I was driving for Papa John's, delivering pizza. So I had my first beat-up Toyota Corolla. I bought it with no bumper, but that thing ran. I bought that for $800. Didn't come with a front bumper, so I ordered a front bumper from Toyota, and I painted that myself. Did the whole thing, learned how to paint. And then later on during the years, I ended up selling that for $4 grand, right? Because it was worth that. I was just able to buy for $800 as a deal. So anyway, just like stuff like that. But anyway, I was driving Papa John's, had that whole magnet on top. I was getting $1.25. I think it was only 75 cents. 75 cents a delivery, and I was at $4.75 minimum wage.
Wow.
And then I got tip on top of that, and the tips were horrible. It was $1 to $3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not a tip era back then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And
and I got lost everywhere.
Yeah.
So I got yelled at more than tipped.
No iPhones back then.
No, I was using
GPS.
Thomas Guide.
Yeah.
If you know what that is, you want.
No clue.
You literally map it out in the Papa John's office. You look at the whole grid, And from there, you're going to map out where you're coming from to the next destination, and you're putting right, left, right, left.
Oh man.
And it's just a disaster, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Horrible.
But you were looking for solutions even at a young age. Like you're like trying to figure out how to find. You weren't sitting down like poopy pants. Like this is my life. Like this is just how it is. You know, feel sorry for myself kind of attitude. Like where did you get that? Because most people, I think, when they're in that situation, they do. It's so easy to feel sorry for yourself, and maybe it was a time thing, but at least today we see that I think a lot. So like, was that normal, or were you just going out and making it happen?
Yeah, I don't know if it's normal. I think there's nurture and nature, right? You heard that term before, right? There's things that are innate in our nature to do so, and then there's nurture where it comes from maybe people that believe in us or people that brought us up. So I don't know. There's 2 to 3 memories that I have. Maybe it helped. I'm sure the situation we were in helped also, where we saw a little good life in the Philippines. So when we came here, it was kind of like the opposite. It was there to welfare, Section 8, food stamps, WIC, right? And back there we had decent house. It wasn't like rich, but we had maids and drivers. I mean, that's kind of typical for upper middle class there. So we were like middle class, upper middle class, probably upper in the Philippines. And then we moved here, and then everything was like the opposite. 1-bedroom apartment, all smashed in. Although we ate good, the food here was better, I'll tell you that. Just because, and then plus it was free from food stamps. So I love our whole system here. Just the challenge with some people, they stay there for a long period of time. So, but to answer your question, I had, there's like 2, 3, maybe more. But there's 3, 4 vivid moments in my life that I remember my mom just instilling things in me. So while like the whole outside world maybe didn't believe in me, looked at me as a black sheep in the family, whatever it is, right? Different labels. I don't really give a shit at this point, right? But there's different labels at one point where, whether it's family members, friends, school, teachers.
Why are you doing that? Just relax, like quit working so hard, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, or labeling me something like, you're the trouble kid or this. Because I was in a lot of trouble in high school. Like I couldn't sit still. I was always kind of, Like they called me hyperactive, too loud. My dad always told me to be quiet. I was quiet for a lot. I was just unobservant in a lot of things because of that. But my mom, on the other hand, my mom instilled a lot of different things. Like he said, man, she read a book called 7 Types of Smart. And you go, man, you're a different kind of smart. You get it. And then she would even say, like, you have a third eye. You can see things and like all these things. And whether it's brainwashing or anything, I think it worked. So, and then we would be in a bidding, and we would, my mom was in a construction business, and we would go in the middle of the park, and we would do a prayer, and then she would get the bid for the construction work. And this is like at 10 years old or something. And I still remember that vividly. It's like 8 o'clock at night, dark. We go in the middle of the park and just pray. And it goes, it's because of you. We got that deal. So like just little, things that was instilled. And I just believed it. I don't know. It was my biggest fan is my mom. That's kind of what I held on while, and then, now it's my wife, but still my mom, right? It's kind of, but that was like my first believer of me while everybody else doubted. And I think I hanged on to that because that's all I had. Everybody else was kind of out. It was doubting or anything. So.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And so you have the attitude, the good attitude. You're continuing on, trying to figure it out, helping with the family and everything. And then was the first thing you did after school, was it real estate?
I got into it at 18 right away. So I picked up a penny saver ad. Probably don't know what that is, but it was like Craigslist, but on paper, and it was mailed to you every Wednesday. So, and then this is like the thing. Like if you wanted to sell a car, I sold all the cars I was selling in the penny saver. So I was like an avid user of this. So this is where you get jobs, basically Craigslist. If you ever use Craigslist. You ever use Craigslist?
Yeah. Love
Okay.
that. Once in a while,
So
back
you
in
can
the
get
day.
rental house, this, that. You could put an ad. Anyway, all sorts of stuff. So I saw a $10 an hour job. So that's double what I was making for a mortgage company. And then it said $200 bonus for applications. I don't know what that meant. And so I applied, and then they hired me. Keep in mind, prior to that, I applied at 15 different fast food joints, and none of them hired me.
Wow.
They didn't even call me. It's like my resume, I didn't have a resume, but my application went into a black hole or just a trash can. No one called me back, nothing. I was just this guy just wanting to win. Was willing to do anything. I don't care if I mopped the floors but no one hired me. But that company did, so I owe a lot of it to them. They were, it's called JRA Funding. They're still there. It's in West Covina, California. There's a guy named there, Jorge Nunez, who took me under his wings and taught me everything from A to Z. And so literally within 6 months or so, I got my real estate license within 6 to 9 months after that, because I was kind of progressing. I recruited my brother there, another best friend, so I got him a job there, and we were all working together, and it was fun. And it was a gig that only was 4 to 9 or 5 to 9. So it's 4 hours a night. So I was still doing stuff during the day.
Yeah.
And I had the whole day free, and at 5 to 9, we rock and roll there. We do morning on Saturdays, and all we did was get on calls, basically.
Yeah.
So we had an automatic dialer on, and we just read the lines, and then everything was just crap. It's failure, because anything new you start, it's like awkward. Like some of these words I've never used before. So it's awkward in the beginning, and it becomes mechanical, right? When I started throwing out mortgage terms, I had no clue what it was. And then it becomes natural, where you own the language. And so part of winning is kind of owning a set of language that belongs to that vision that you have of who you have for yourself. There's a set of language that guy talks that you need to start talking now, so you can talk like that guy, right? So same thing. I mean, in the mortgage side, so there was one guy that was he got hired into that company maybe 3-4 months later, and this dude was kind of out of like 12 of us in there making calls. He got an application like every 30 minutes or 20. Actually, we were there for probably got 5 a day, maybe more, which is huge. So I started seeking out, started learning what he did, and he started kind of coaching me. He said, "Don't say this," and we would put the mute, say this, and we would go through it. And that was my first kind of flavor of, because the owner of the company was more on systems and processes, which I learned. And then from him was more on, man, this language stuff works, man. If you just know what to say and how to say it, you get an effective result. And I learned that there firsthand.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but ultra sharp dude, and just coached me through that. And then next thing you know, I get my real estate license. I get promoted to a loan officer. Started doing that. So basically there was 12 of us passing everything to the loan officer. Eventually, I became the same job that guy had, and then everything was passed on to me at that point. So this is like a year in, and then I ended up buying a house within a few months after that.
Right. So
at 19, yeah.
Yeah, so you start doing that, you're doing pretty well at it, figuring that out. And then how did you find financial services from real estate?
Yeah, so that's about, 4 years of doing that. So I did that, did well there, and then did real estate for about another 3-4 years. I actually transitioned to another company called Barlin and Associates, and did that. It was a real estate company, did actually real estate and loans there for about a couple of years. And then there was a random career fair in DeVry that my brother was going to. And then he received these invitation cards to go to a local office for a seminar. So me, my mom, my ex-girlfriend, and my brother were all in there. So we looked at the company, and basically that's kind of where the doors were open.
And then so you got involved, and then
It was like a process. It was like 6 months before I got involved.
Okay.
But it was like a process interview here, and then I was doing well in real estate. I was making multiple 6 figures there. I had a couple homes already. I sold a home, made some money there. So it was kind of doing good. And then during that kind of 6-month process, I had somebody following up on me. And they just called me. Back then I had an Ericsson flip phone. So I'd flip it open, you answer the phone, you want to hang up, you flip it back, or you take off the battery. That's the only way to kind of get rid of that phone call. There's no end button or anything. You got to flip it open because there's no buttons unless you open it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so for like 5 months, this lady was relentless, just on the phone, just calling me, it felt like every week. Maybe it was every 2 weeks, but called me. And one day, there were some issues with transactions in real estate, and I wasn't paid correctly. And, I was kind of bitter about it because I was taken out from something I earned, right? So anyway, I picked up the phone at that time, and this is where follow-up game, whether it's for clients or business partners, the follow-up game must be on point because sometimes you're following up and the answer is no, sometimes when times are good, but times are bad or something happens in their life, the answer is yes, right? So anyways, I say yes to sitting back down. And we sit down with a gentleman in that company, did another interview, and then I liked it. I said, let's do it. And then I never looked back since. That was the start.
Yeah.
I did it part-time as a twin career for about 6 months, and then full throttle after that.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about like the beginning, right? Like, is it just totally new information, new terms? You're trying to like copycat the other people that are successful, kind of like real estate, or like, did you smack home runs at the beginning, or was it like speed bumps, roadblocks? Like, what was it like at the beginning?
Yeah, it was good because it was extremely fun. I was part of a very fun environment, high energy, buzzing environment. I mean, on a Saturday, there would be 300-400 people just swarming through the office, and just nuts. Like if you didn't get there early, you were all the way in the back or outside the lobby trying to hear the meeting. And you didn't want to leave because it was FOMO, right? I was like, because everybody wanted to be there. And so it was about showing up early, right? If you were on time, you're late. And so it was a nice practice because it was like, they didn't need us. We needed them, right? And so we had twice a week, there was training. These are all live trainings at that time. And then during the week, we would, again, that 8 o'clock schedule where we come in, we practice drill rehearse, we do affirmations, we hit the phones, and then we do appointments after that from 11 to 5. We'll do appointments, and then we'll have some evening appointments as well with clients. So that was kind of our schedule. We ran it. I mean, it was, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks.
Yeah. And so I know that, you were able to build up over the years a pretty solid group that was inside of your agency on your team that you were helping, and like, you had 11 in-person offices in California.
I got you water. I'm a water snob.
Yeah, I love it. Mountain Valley, baby. Quick plug.
Mountain Valley. If you guys can sponsor me, that'd be great.
And so how long was it when you had 11 offices in person when you were in California after you got started?
I was with someone else's office for about probably a good...
Thank you.
Yep, you got it. About a good, probably first 8 years or so. I didn't see a need to do it on our own. Plus, every time I wanted to do it, they go, it's not time yet, you don't need it. Which in hindsight, I mean, that was true. There's no need to have your own expense and all this when you can just plug into some other office with their environment. And there's a lot to having your own office. There's also obviously benefits to it. But it was about 8 years in. And then we opened up one. And then we opened that one with like 40 agents. And then we grew that. We grew it in like 3 to 6 months. It was a pretty big size office, about 6,000 square feet. We had our own parking lot. We would do events in the back, tents. Eventually we filled up the parking lots with giant tents, and we did the meeting there because we couldn't fit in the office. And eventually we leased the space next door where we did the training. We did seminars and training within 2 locations. Anyway, that was that until we maxed capacity that, and we started opening up almost every 30 miles in Southern California just because of traffic and all that. So we had that whole process of 11 offices was, I don't know, within 3 years, we went from 1 to 11.
And did you change your focus at that point of like, we're going to try to build an agency versus, try to produce on our own, or what was your mentality? Like, was it always the same style, or did you just start to open up physical locations? Is that the
Yeah, it
only
was
difference?
physical locations at that point. So these are, so the idea was to run independent locations that were self-sustaining, self-motivating, self-financing locations that independently ran on its own. So we would open up one, and then we would, train on systems, leadership on that office where it can self-sustain, and then we go on another one. So we would almost do like a tour, inspection, this, that. It was fun, man. We did that in every city. Now we do it on Zoom, but all that was in person. Yeah, we'd go through LA traffic, San Bernardino, Riverside, LA County. I mean, just that whole area, Orange County.
Yeah. And so when you changed to starting to open up offices and do a lot of training and investing in other people, is that the point where your business started to really grow and compound and get bigger and bigger and bigger? Or was that kind of like always growing and compounding in the background? Do you think when you started to do more of that for your group, did that directly, increase your guys' business and your agency that you were building?
Oh yeah, but because back then the only way we measured our business growth was the amount of attendance in those meetings or the offices, if we filled up offices basically. So we grew, that was the measurement of our growth. So it was almost like, I don't know if you're familiar with koi fish and how you put in a small pond, they stay a certain size. You grow the size of the pond, then they grow bigger. So it's indicative of the size of the pond is indicative of their size. But so that's how we looked at it. So when we were opening up these offices, we knew what the count was on each office and how it was growing and the head count and all that stuff that was taking place. It's very good. We grew literally from 30 to 100, 100 to 300, and then we went from 300 to 500, and then kind of kept growing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And during that time, I guess,
And 500 licensed agents. That's kind of what that was. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
In that space and in that time, what was the biggest bottleneck, challenge, difficulty that you guys faced when you were like, because you're full force, you're in it every day, your personal life, you met Miriam and you guys are doing the business together.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had kids really quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
Like in that time frame, what was the biggest challenge for you while you were trying to grow your business and make sure that's priority, but also like take care of yourself and everything else that's going on inside life?
Yeah. I have, how do you manage that, or what the?
Yeah, like for you, like what was the biggest challenge that you faced and like?
Yeah, managing that, I did a lot of, I got obsessed with managing my time because that's the only way. We all share the same 24 hours. That's all we got. So it's the edge is knowing how to deal with those 24 hours, right? The sleep and this. And back then, we barely slept. I wouldn't say the same thing now. I know the difference between sleeping and not. In my 20s, I didn't know the difference. It didn't matter. I was functioning on 4 hours of sleep, like it was normal. But now I do need it. Maybe it's an age thing. Who knows? But yeah, I planned everything every night, every morning, and every week. So I would have weekly outcomes, monthly outcomes, quarterly outcomes, daily outcomes, and then, whether it's family, marriage, business, growth, licensing. I'm just throwing out categories, and then we would grow and push those different things, and then I'm looking at it from the outside looking in, and then we grow those things. So, and then obviously it has to appear in your calendar with each one, and then you move the needle with each one. But obviously there's a lot of moving parts there. Probably, if there was one thing that I'd be good at early on, if you're not yet, some people come equipped with it. Maybe they grew up with great communication at home, but it's how you deal with people. It's number one. That's leadership, number one. It's like you can't even lead someone if they don't like you or any of that. It's just there. It's hard to follow someone you don't like or don't trust, or so trust, respect, or obviously respect is earned. But yeah, people skills would be one. I remember reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's somewhere in the back. But I practiced the book. It's not like I read it. I practiced it. there's a difference. Most people read a book and I go, that's a nice idea. Yeah, I took every idea from a book because I was just like, I wanted to mold myself because I just didn't know any better. It's like I got started in my 20s. It's not like I wasn't exposed to, all these variety of people that I started to come across with. Think about it, I'm dealing with 70-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, divorcees, and just like, imagine, thousands of people, just an array of personalities and different upbringings. And think about that for a second. And I was just trying to figure this out as a 22-year-old leader, right?
Yeah, right.
Because that's when I got started. We grew our team pretty quickly early on. So we had 35 or so early on, and one of those people were my wife. One of those person in my business. We weren't married. I was just she was my crush, and there was two people that referred her to me, and then I was like stoked about it because I'm like, this is, I took a picture with her like 5 years prior in she was in a fashion show, so I was take a picture of her, and I kept that picture. I'm like, and I was flossing to my friends, and I go, this is the girl I met, boom, 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 whatever. I was trying to pretend I was hooking up with someone, and it was nothing. But anyway, like 5 years later, we just encounter like different moments, and then there's two random people that referred him, said, well, why don't you go check out what Paul's doing? Right? There was a lady named Lou Razan, and then a gentleman named, there was another guy named Monet, and that basically connected us. And that was a blessing because she came in, we had a lunch appointment, and then she had no clue what it was. We were just doing a lunch appointment with another lady and a business owner and her, and then she came to one of the seminars that we were doing, and then she didn't obviously she didn't get the financial aspect of it, but at that time at least, but she loved the people aspect of it. That's what she fell in love with, and so she got started, and she was we call it when someone's in the business and they get started real quick, we call them a rabbit. They're one of the rabbits in the business, and so she was one of the rabbits in my business, which was kind of neat. I was training her, and obviously I took kind of advantage of that because we were doing more lunches and dinners more than appointments. So, but within 6 months, I married her. I asked her to marry me, and the rest was history there. But yeah, 4 kids later, locked her in.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I love it. And one of the things that I noticed, when I hear your story, when you are talking about how you guys were food stamps, it was, $30,000 a year maybe that your mom was making, like you had to change your perspective so much along the journey to get to 11 offices and having tons of licensed agents and teaching and training and helping other people be successful. Like, how did you change your mindset from thinking small to thinking big and not capping yourself out, not limiting yourself? Because most people, I think, they get stuck somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we were just blessed inside the business where we had association. We got to hang out with people who are doing a lot better than us, and I think just being around that helped a lot. It's like same thing if you're around 5 healthy people, and you're the 6th one. The behaviors and all that transfers, the habits, the mindset. So we were around that like vast majority of the day.
And so for you having no experience like inside of building your own business, you're in real estate, you're doing well. What was the biggest?
And then the past success in real estate helped out a little bit.
Yeah.
With a little success there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And you're able to, carry that over.
Yeah.
But like to build a big business, like what do you think the biggest contributors were to that? Obviously you were working hard, you're willing to do the work, but like, was it the group that you were with, the structure, the information, the products, like the industry, like what were the biggest contributors to like you being able to go out there and build something massive without having any prior experience in the business?
Yeah, I think the platform matters. So I pick the right platform wherever you're at. You pick the right platform to be in. System matters. What kind of system do they have currently? And then leadership is, by far probably the number one deal there. What's the leadership like? Is there access to leadership? So like if I can find a platform that works, and then I can have someone that's willing to help me do it, which mentor, coach, whatever you want to name them, someone that's willing to help me, guide me through the ropes, then it's just, man, how much work do I put in, right? So someone that can course correct me, help me out, and then I have a platform to run on where I always talk about this, but it has enough horsepower to get you to where you want to go. You know what I mean? So everybody, I think Warren Buffett was talking about this. He said, doesn't matter how many people can row the boat. The matters is the kind of boat you're in. So like if the boat would be the platform, I mean, you could be good at rowing, right, which is working hard. And we can have 10 of us working hard, 20 of us. But if there's a speedboat next to us, it doesn't matter how we row. I'll take the speedboat. It'll get us to our destination quicker. So the speedboat, again, is the platform, which matters, right? I mean, so not, there's a saying that I grew up with in the business called not all knowledge is of equal value. So there's certain things that may be knowledge that you acquire that doesn't have the same value as something else, right? So there's specific knowledge that you learn that the value is incredible in the marketplace, right? There's certain things that's more valuable now, right? And that wasn't valuable then, and so on and so forth. So I think platform's number one, just because that determines the speed that I'm going. Leadership, and then you add some system there. Done deal, which we had those three things.
Yeah. And what's an example of like a boat that doesn't have a lot of speed? Like what is the boat where everybody's rowing with their hands and they're working hard and they think that they're making progress, but there's a speedboat that they don't see, they could hop on it.
Well, I'll just give you just one common thing. Is anything to do with labor. Nothing wrong with it. Like I like watering the grass. It's therapeutic for me. Or just chopping, like, I do. I have big scissors out there. I do some manual stuff. But for me, it's like exercise, and I can kind of just decompress. It's therapeutic for me. I mean, but can't be doing that all day, right? I mean, it's not. Although I enjoy it, it's more therapeutic more than anything. But that's an extreme version of it. But you can kind of figure out. I mean, if I'm constantly trading time for money, right? Then I'm obviously capped based on my 24 hours I have in a day. Right? Robert Kiyosaki talks about it. If there's only two ways to get wealthy, or at least forget wealthy, financially independent, right? Because not everybody's going to be wealthy, but everybody should be at least at one point financially independent. And the only way to be financially independent, my income needs to come from a business or an investment. That is it. There's no other way, right? So if my income is I'm constantly trading time for money, which is basically an employee or self-employed, I'm trading time for money constantly, then at one point I'm capped because of my 24 hours that I have in a day, right? So I want to be free. My income needs to come from here. So I would look at it from that standpoint, right? And a business owner, by the way, is I leave my business for 3 to 6 months and I can come back and it's still profitable. That's the definition of a business by Robert, right? Which is local. He's local here to PV, right? But in the investment side is obviously my money's working for me as opposed to me working for my money, whether that's something in the stock market, real estate, whatever it is, right? But it's self-sustaining. You got some passive income there. Yeah.
And so that's like something that doesn't get taught in schools. Most people don't just have that information passed down to them. Like if I'm doing that right now, or if I'm in that position where I am trading all my time for money and I have to show up, and maybe it is a 9 to 5, and like that's not the route that I want to go. Like, do I plug into new information? Like, how do you like, where do people make the adjustment to, like, is it a different way of thinking? Is it just the people that you're around? Like, what do I do if I'm in that spot to like, because you're able to figure that out young.
Yeah. And
because of that, set yourself up really, really well in life. Yeah. And I think a lot of people just don't, maybe they're not given the right information, but they're working hard.
Yeah.
Just they're not doing the right things, right?
Yeah. I think one is you get good at what you're doing, whatever it is, whatever space you're in, and then if you can teach that to other people, I think that's how YouTube just became big, right? I mean, all these guys, especially in COVID, people were blowing up that were teaching how to cut hair because the barbershop were closed, and so people were buying, clippers from Target and then started going at it, but they were watching all these barbershop, and then all their channels blew up, right? But those channels were already there. They were teaching how to cut hair, right? And so I think you get good at something, but the next phase is you start teaching from the teaching standpoint, where you can teach the world or teach the community or teach another fellow man or woman to do the same. And there's a lot of platforms out there. I mean, we know some folks that utilize these, virtual training platforms where you can utilize certain things, right, to train people and scale what they're doing. And so I think you go next phase is the teaching phase. And there's different ways to monetize it. First is just value added first, and then, obviously there's different ways to do that.
Yeah. So one other thing that you mentioned earlier.
Obviously for me, it's internally I'm teaching people in it, where I train and develop people, and then their success is my success, right? So it's a different game. But I mean, there's companies that are structured like that, and you can help grow and scale the company.
Yeah, I love that. And when earlier you mentioned, being in the right room, you got started, there's great energy inside of your company. There was good leadership. You were able to learn from people. If I'm someone right now looking from the outside in on people that are successful, maybe I watch podcasts, I read books, but I haven't done anything, like, what is something that I can do to get in the room with someone like you, or maybe get a hold of, or like, how do I get attention from someone to kind of give me that perspective and guidance? Like, do I,
if I'm in the same room with them?
Well, I mean, just, someone watching, like, should they get involved in an opportunity? Is there, taking action on the things that they're learning, right? Like, because a lot of people are watching and they're not in the room, they're not doing the work, they're not taking the action, but they're watching it and they're not involved in it, right? So like networking, how do I get in the room with people that are farther along than me? How do I, a lot of people, they want to take from successful people rather than give to successful people. And I think that there's a clash there of networking, right? Like, because if I'm unsuccessful, how do I get in the room with the successful people to learn what they know?
Yeah. I would, a couple of things. I would listen, just listen more than you talk, number one. Most people, they get in there and I call it the diarrhea of the mouth. They just they want to impress people with what they know. And they just you know what I mean? Just all this stuff just comes out. I've seen it with people, especially when someone's nervous. The tendency for nervous people is to talk too much, right? You can see it in the, people doing calls. I mean, they just want to give so much. And so, so listen is one. I mean, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. We use it accordingly. I mean, this is from Tony Robbins. It talks about. So yeah, listen. And then the second thing is serve. Find ways to serve, whatever that might be. Find ways to serve. There's different ways to serve, but just grabbing somebody coffee, volunteering, doing all sorts of stuff, just kind of that's how you get into rooms. A lot of times we go there to get. You got to go there to serve. Similar to church, you go there to serve. You don't come there to take, you come to serve, and that's how you make the church better. That's how you make the community better. You come to serve. And so I think it's the same in any kind of involvement in any company. If you come there with a servant mindset, and by the way, leadership is serving. I mean, so you're already doing the first form of leadership, which is serving people. But most people, they come, they thinking of taking, getting, or impressing people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And last question for you. If I'm a new agent, right, I'm getting involved and I'm on your team and I'm looking up the mountain and I'm like, man, Paul, you've been so successful over the last 20 years in building an agency and, figuring out how to be really, really good to a lot of clients and teach a lot of other people how to do the same thing. What do I do to get to where you're at, having no experience, no history in the business, right? Like, what is something that you tell a new agent that wants to win, that wants to work hard, that wants to get to where you're at, but is starting from ground floor after, knowing everything that you know in your experience?
Yeah. I'd keep it simple. One, I mean, I'd obviously hone down on the skills. There's certain skills you need to learn in business. I mean, one of them is, for example, is phone skills would be one. Just understand the game with the phone skills. It's not so much, it's to book an appointment. It's not much, you know what I mean? So it's a 2-3 minute conversation that leads to an appointment. That's all that phone skills are. And then there's one-on-one, whether you're doing one-on-one on Zoom or in person, how to do a 20-30 minute conversation that elicits some sort of follow-up or result, right? And then third is how do I, if I'm involved in training people, how do I train people, right? How do I transfer skill? And then fourth is how do I help out a client? How do I, if it's in the financial side of it, but it could be any industry, but how do I help out a client? How do I serve? How do I take them from a name and a number, and then they go, yes, I want to do business with you. Here's my checkbook. Those are the 4 skill sets. So if I can just master those 4 skill sets, second is I'm going to master I call it will set, but it's your willpower. How do I get up in the morning and operate where I can be motivated, self-sufficient, self-motivating, self-replicating? I don't need somebody to motivate me every day and call me and you go, hey, how you doing? You motivated today? None of that stuff. You're doing that on your own because you're empowered with your vision, where you're going. You're affirming yourself. You're looking at your vision. You're looking out to where you want to, where you want to go. So it's this set of things that you do. I call it your winning recipe that you do that keeps you up late at night because you're so fired up about where you're going. You can't wait to get up in the morning. Like this is not something that I have to do. I get to do it. I'm freaking fired up. You know what I mean? I'm fired up. I woke up this morning just fired up, excited. I text you guys first thing in the morning, right? Looked at the sunset and just fired up every morning, and I can't sleep at night. Till today, 20 years in. So this is something that I get to do this. I love this, man. This is my sport. So that's the will side of things. How do you just stay fresh? How do you stay passionate where you're communicating and it's real, it's raw, we're connecting. It's not just some random speech. It's not something I'm regurgitating, right? I feel this and I'm transferring my feeling, right? And I think people connect to that. And then last one is my mindset, just kind of my beliefs, right? All that stuff, and figure out my there's limiting beliefs, my identity, figuring out that game right there. And a lot of it, there's only so much we can do, but you get around the right people, you make sure, typically when we're not doing good, we don't want to associate with people that are doing good. It's natural because we feel bad around them. And when we're doing good, we want to be around the winners because we feel like them, right? And then it's a nice vibes, but typically we disassociate from people when we're not doing good, and we associate only when we're doing good, when it's the total opposite of what we need to do. So one is, I got to change my association, who I'm hanging around with, right? And then that could be temporary, maybe it's through books, tapes, podcasts. I'm saying tapes, but you know what I mean. YouTube video, whatever it is, right? So I have my who's the 5, 10 people, if they were all in the same room with you, who would those people be? Like I have an imaginary mastermind that takes place, who would those 5 people be? And I'm constantly having a conversation. If I was in this guy's shoe, how would I operate, right? So that's my association from a mindset standpoint. I would find out my limiting beliefs also. I'm giving you just some tangible things that people can do from a mindset. Like what are the stories that's holding you back, right? So before, when I got started, when I was 22, I looked like I was 12. So I can show you stories. In fact, we'll probably clip some on the video. Looked like 12, literally. When I married my wife, I was $138 or something like that. You know what I mean? That's like skeleton. I'm glad she said yes. She said yes to my ambition. That's a key things for you guys out there. If you're looking for a woman, that sometimes they want a man with a dream and ambition, right? That's going somewhere. Didn't look pretty right there and there. I had a little something going, but it wasn't. She could have got anybody. She chose me, right? She bought the dream and where we were going, not necessarily where we're at. Yeah. So there was a lot of other people that are doing way better than me that was, trying to get at her. Where were we at?
Your mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Ambition.
So that's kind of, once you figure that out, right? Your limiting beliefs, your limiting stories. So one of the things that I told myself constantly, which didn't work, by the way, it was story against me, was I'm too young. Are people listening to me, right? Or why would they listen to me, right? So it's like it's a stupid question. Therefore, it elicits a stupid answer. Because if I ask myself stupid questions, then I get stupid answers from myself. Usually, this like internal dialogue that's taking place, we got to control the dialogue there. And so the questions we ask ourselves determines how we think, right? Especially if we're talking to ourselves. It's like this is constantly, So one, I got to change how I'm talking to myself or the questions I'm asking myself. And I got to change the story. Instead of, I'm too young, how can I do this? Which is kind of, or, are people listening to me? Which was the typical questions I'm asking myself. As I go, man, I'm young and I got the edge, I got the energy. Man, and I'm bringing the passion. And so I changed the story there, where my old story was BS, and I started diving into books because typically first 5 minutes I'm judged until we start having, or maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then after that, once we have a dialogue, they go, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so I had to dive into some books, just technical knowledge, not just like mindset and rah-rah, whatever, right? I wanted to learn like the nitty gritty, just because I wanted to be able to communicate with an engineer. I wanted to be able to communicate with, some smart people are there just in case I encountered them, which I did a lot. And then they'll test you. So everything they're doing the first 10, 15 minutes is just seeing if you know what you're doing. And then once you kind of escape that, then we can go build rapport and do all the rest of the stuff. So I did a lot of that too, just as a part of it, just because it helped with my internal dialogue. So sometimes maybe if it's constant thing you're thinking about, why don't you just attack the problem? So let's say you go, I don't know, will they listen to me? I don't know that much, right? Or knowledge maybe is something that whatever it is, knowledge on a specific trait or business, then I dive into that space and then just know it. Instead of trying to repeat this dialogue, then attack that very thing that keeps coming up.
Right.
Yeah.
Last thing, do you think time in the industry, financial services industry, has a direct correlation with success in it and being able to be super profitable and being able to increase your income?
Yeah, I think in any industry, but I mean, part of it is, there's a part where I'm working on so there's a good part of our career where this is even the first 5 to 10 years where everything we were doing was based on our strength. So we were going at it based on our strength. And I think it's a great path. There's a limit to it because there's also your weakness. Like Michael Jordan was criticized for his defense and other stuff in his game, right? His defense and just this team, as far as being a team player, he was criticized for a couple of things like that, right? So, and then he came back the following year, become the defensive player of the year, right? So he attacked this very thing he was criticized for. So I think greatness, I mean, it's great, but there's only so much you can do until you work on your weakness. For example, if I'm bad with people, but I'm good with a lot of other stuff, like you attack the very thing that's dragging you down or keeps you stagnate. So whether that's people issue, and that could be other stuff, right? A skill issue, right? Just different aspects. I'd figure out, okay, what's keeping me stagnant or dragging me down, because it's the very thing that's keeping me from being outstanding or being great, right? Is those things. I can only go to a certain level with my strength. The next level is I work on things that keep me stagnant or drag me down, which is my weakness at that point,
Yeah.
And the closer, so it's not timeline, it's how fast can I work on my strength where I can jump into my weakness now at one point, and that could be 5 years. It doesn't have to be 10 years like me. I've seen you grow and what you've done, over the past, it's not even 5 years. I don't know how many years is it?
2, yeah.
2 years. I've seen what your understanding with people, the technical aspect of it, leadership, your aura with people. I mean, you've done amazing. I mean, you've done great things out there. Just your milestones ahead. I mean, it's just there's so much, like you just add like little components and then you explode your whole business, man. Which I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun. But yeah, thanks for being here today. If people want to reach out, follow you, get more information, like they want to get involved or whatever, like can they follow you on social or?
Yeah. It's Paul Ireton. Pretty simple. Ireton's Ireton. Paul Ireton. That's it. And on Instagram, TikTok, all of it. YouTube. It's all the same. Paul Ireton.
Yeah. Well, cool, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming by.
Yeah.